YouTube kept pushing this video in front of me. You might like this video. You might like this video. Maybe I will. I haven't watched this. I have, of course, seen Jessica from How to ADHD, and it looks like the most charming channel in the world. And man, I really, really hope this video is good. This is called What is Burnout? It's basically just a definitions video. So let's see. Let's see. I hope it's good.
Hello, brains. Are you burned out? Have you been burned out? I feel like I'm burning out. Am I burned out? What is burnout? Burnout, noun, is a state of physical, mental, or emotional exhaustion.
Okay, I'm not going to be this picky. Most of the time, I'm just going to say, like, linguistics, especially phonetic transliteration, is a special interest of mine. I'm just going to say that this is pronounced burn out, not burnout. That's an incorrect transliteration. That's okay. I'm getting over it. And yes, burnout is a state of exhaustion. Great, let's get more specific.
The term was coined in the 1970s by the American psychologist Herbert
Freudenberger, going straight to the science. Very nice.
Of severe stress and high ideals in helping professions.
Exactly.
Since
Yes.
The concept has expanded to include any profession. The main researchers who study burnout define it as a...
It's not actually just expanded to any profession. It's also expanded to parenthood, to social justice work, to caregiving, whether as a job or just as a role that you have in your life. So, yeah.
Psychological syndrome emerging as a prolonged response to chronic interpersonal stressors on the job.
That is another source of
outside work
stress.
Create a sense of physical, mental, or emotional exhaustion.
Exactly.
But for the purposes of this video, I want...
Wow, she talks fast and I love it, but I also want to take seconds to reflect, so I'm just going to be pausing. And, okay, go on.
Clarify what we know about burnout in terms of what most mental health professionals probably mean when they use the term, which is occupational burnout. Why?
That's true.
The ICD-11, which is a diagnostic manual, includes burnout specifically as a workplace phenomenon. And
Okay. The ICD-11 does describe it as a workplace phenomenon because the purpose of the WHO is to monitor systems and policies that are in place that affect humans, and the systems and the policies they can affect are, about legislation, which is often about workplace. And so because this all started in the workplace, specifically with air traffic controllers, the WHO and the ICD-11 have worked out this particular definition. But she just said mental health professionals use the term burnout because the ICD-11, and the ICD-11 is not the kind of language that is used by mental health professionals. Like psychologists use the DSM. DSM and the ICD define autism differently. In the DSM, autism spectrum disorder includes what the ICD calls Asperger's syndrome. The ICD still calls Asperger's syndrome Asperger's after the eugenics guys. So the DSM and the ICD are different, and the kinds of professionals who use that terminology are not the same.
Defines it as a syndrome conceptualized as resulting from chronic workplace stress that has not been successfully managed. One of the brains explains it as soul-sucking emptiness and despair where caring and passion for my work used to exist.
That's terrific.
A lack of joy in success and mounting dread of my failures. Exhaustion, apathy, and dread every time I think about work. Desire to curl up and never move, which is actually pretty accurate. According to ICD-11, occupational burnout isn't just about being tired. In fact, it's characterized by 3 dimensions.
Yes.
Feelings of energy depletion or exhaustion, increased mental distance from
Yes, in particular, emotional exhaustion.
one's job, or feelings of negativism or cynicism related to one's job, and reduced professional efficacy while employed.
Okay, maybe this is an updated definition, but the original 3 factors were emotional exhaustion, decreased personalization, which I think is the sense of distance, and decreased sense of accomplishment. Those are definitely the same 3 things. She's using different words, and words matter, in my opinion, but they're the same 3 things: emotional exhaustion, depersonalization, and decreased sense of accomplishment. And I think that's actually important because decreased sense of accomplishment does not necessarily mean decreased efficacy. Decreased sense of accomplishment means you feel like you're not getting anything done, but you might be getting just as much done as you were before. You just can't tell. This is a result of one of the things that happens during the stress response is your mind blocks out everything except the here and now to keep you focused on what it takes to save your life, to escape the lion, or, the stress response in the environment of evolutionary adaptiveness. That's a strong thing that will definitely help you if what you need to save your life is to escape a lion. But if what you need to maintain your, paycheck is to be able to see the big picture, it's not a great thing. And you may not be able to see the ways that your work is influencing others or the ways you're connecting with other people because your sense of the big picture is limited by the stress response. So it gives you a decreased sense of accomplishment, but it may or may not actually decrease your actual accomplishment.
These are often quick to blame themselves and may even try to hide the fact that they're struggling. The researchers who study burnout recognize that it's a systemic issue caused by a mismatch between people and their work. And
Exactly.
they've identified 6 dimensions in which those mismatches tend to happen.
This is very well researched because she actually has hit the nail on the head extremely quickly, getting to the fact that the mismatch between the person and the workload or the person in the context is where burnout can start. It's not just in your workload, but it's in your, parenting and interacting socially with people who may or may not understand that you're not neurotypical, or for whatever reason, or just in the large scale big picture. If you're a person of color living in a white supremacy, you're going to feel a disconnect between yourself and your context. So I'm really glad she got to that so fast. That's excellent point. Well done.
Workload. Too much work, not enough resources.
Yeah.
Control. Micromanagement, lack of influence, accountability without power.
Yeah.
Reward, which means not enough pay or acknowledgement or
Yeah.
satisfaction. Community, which can include isolation, conflict, disrespect. Fairness, including discrimination, favor.
Yes, at work. Good. Yes. But also so much more. So that if you have a fantastic job where you're not being burned out, where there's a perfect match between yourself and the expectations that are being asked of you, even then, you still live in a white supremacist, cishet, normative, exploitative, late capitalistic patriarchy, and therefore you're still going to be exposed to unmeetable goals and unceasing expectations. So it's not just about work, but let's hear the thing she has to say about communicating with the people who are in charge of your environment to maybe make it less burnouty.
People don't burn out because they're weak. They burn out because of a mismatch between them and their work that they've pushed through long enough trying to be good employees that their brains and or bodies have essentially gone on strike and refused to keep working under these conditions. So reversing burnout isn't something they can do on their own by taking a vacation.
I love the idea of a brain on strike, just like, I'm not. I have definitely felt that way. Part of my burnout felt like my brain has gone on strike. It just refuses until I give it better working conditions. Very good. Excellent.
They and the organization have to address the mismatch. Someone with ADHD excitedly hyper-focusing on a project and then being exhausted and needing recovery time is not the same as burnout. That's just how our brains work. And trying to force somebody to work differently in order to prevent burnout can actually contribute to it. So can taking work off our plate that we feel effective at and find.
Yeah, now that I'm essentially self-employed, I'm a COVID long hauler and the experience is much like chronic fatigue. And so I don't want to overwork and then pay for it later. But really the most effective way I work is by investing huge amounts of time and then hyper focusing on one particular project and working until I feel done. Not working until I feel exhausted or working until I feel like there's nothing. Here, I'll put her over here. That's a little bit better, isn't it? I'm so glad she made this point because, the disconnect between standard ways or recommended ways of working and being, non-typical. It's one of the ways that meeting the expectations is harder if you are not neurotypical.
Rewarding. Again, it's about the fit between people and their work. When addressing burnout, we can't forget to account for the people part. Burnout is something that should be tackled in collaboration. Finally, addressing burnout is good for everyone. If it's caught early and the mismatches are addressed, it can be easy to recover from.
Totally.
But chronic burnout can take months or even years to get back to where we can work effectively. Employers and employees have the same goal, for the employee to be able to work well and contribute.
Except no. I'm so sorry. Like, again, this is like so bright, and like the presentation is so concise and fast and chipper and bright and sunny, and like it's like an expressionist painting of burnout. Here it all is. And you need to examine it a little bit with more looking for the nuance, which is that some employers, that is not their goal. Some employers, like other leaders of social contexts, are not looking to get the most out of the people who work for them. They're not looking to maximize the quality of work they get from the people who are participating in their organization. There are definitely contexts where what is expected of the participant is to squeeze themselves empty like a tube of toothpaste, to be discarded at the end. That is how employers think of employees a lot of the time, way too often. That's also how the general white supremacist, normative, late exploitative, capitalistic patriarchy also feels about people who do not conform to that single socially constructed ideal. It thinks that we don't matter and we can just, get on the production line and make things for other people and buy things from other people, and it's our economic exchange is all that matters from us. And in the meantime, if they can get us to vote for them, great. But unfortunately, the intentions are not always good, and that's one of the things that makes recovering from burnout harder. I'm definitely speaking from personal experience, because in academia, frankly, in a lot of industry, there's a lot of lip service paid to caring for employees, and we're all one family here. I've worked for so many places that say, but you're part of our blah 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 family. You're part of our retail sales family. And like, no. If we were family, you would let me rest when I was tired. If we were family, you would pay me a living wage. Like, But maybe this expressionist painting of what is burnout will also include some of this nuance, and maybe I've jumped ahead too soon.
Can't do that if we're burned out. I've linked more information in the description below, and I'll be doing more episodes on this topic in the future. But in the meantime, let's start talking about it. This episode is sponsored by the Hero's Journal.
And now the kind of ad situation. All right. Well, so I love how grounded this was in science and in the definitions. It's a fantastic place to start. And I hope that when she talks about burnout in the future, does she talk about burnout in the future? I don't even know how old this video is. So this video is only 3 months old, and it's one of her shorts. So that explains why it's just like an expressionist painting of what burnout is. So what I'm going to recommend for Jessica as she works to do more work talking about and helping others deal with and address burnout is expand the notion of burnout into social justice, caregiver, parental, and other kinds of burnout that are very well studied. Read that science and understand that. Hey, I have a book to recommend that has done all that work already. It's called Burnout: The Secret to Unlocking the Stress Cycle. Anyway, Jessica, if you're interested in where I would go next, which obviously is to connect the research from the ICD to the research from other credible scientific sources, and then also find the connections to people's lived experiences. Yeah, you could read my book. That might be helpful. But you don't have to. You could just go get the, hold on. Well, first of all, there's a lot of endnotes, but then there's also a list of references. So if you're going to start anywhere, start here. I don't know how much higher ed you've done. But one of the things people teach about research is to look in the references cited and sources list. But in the end, her final conclusion was right, that even when you're just talking about workplace burnout, the solution is cooperation between the employer and the employee. because the employee can't do it alone and the employer can't do it alone, because the real cure for burnout is all of us caring for each other.